Hello, welcome to Dynasty Degens. Today we're doing a nice special, so we're talking Scott Fishbowl. Scott Fishbowl, I think everyone should have an idea of what Scott Fishbowl is, but if you don't, this is probably the pod you want to listen to right now, because I have the man, the myth, the guy that has, most of the Scott Fishbowl information in his back pocket. Doesn't really need an introduction, but this is Mr. Ryan McDowell at Ryan Mick MC. What'd you say? Ryan Mick 23 on X. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Yeah, doing well, man. How's it going? Glad to be on here with you talking SFB. It's definitely that time of year where that's ramping up, and it's a fun time for sure.
Yeah, it's been only Dynasty content for me, and this is always a fun time because I have to switch that part of my brain off, and I go into redraft, and I try to limit what I do. I do the tournaments, I'll get into the certain redraft tournaments, but I'm not a redraft guy by any means. So it's very hard to transition. And this is the perfect time to transition because Scott Fishbowl works as that buffer for me. We get to talk about the values. We talk about strategy a little bit, and then really just kind of go off of that. I never do well in Scott Fishbowl. I'll just throw that out there right now. I have never finished well. It's always, I work with my dynasty brain a little bit, and then I take guys that just don't hit for redraft.
Yeah.
And I'm telling myself we're doing it different this year.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same, actually. It's that dynasty mindset. It's hard to turn that off, even when you're playing in a seasonal redraft league or whatever, including SFB. I mean, last year I think I drafted 6 running backs and 5 of them were rookies, and just kind of held on, waiting for those backup running backs to hit. And of course, last year was the one year where all the 28, 29-year-old veteran running backs all stayed healthy the same year. So, SFB didn't go great for me last year. I've typically make the playoffs and don't necessarily have a far run, but I'm usually squeaking into the playoffs. But yeah, it's always a fun challenge. Scott always mixes it up with scoring settings and lineup settings, and he always has a few surprises for us.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's your best finish in Scott Fishbowl of all the years? Where has your final, like the one season you remember where you're like, okay, I almost had it, or I had it, or
Yeah, I don't know that I have a great one, honestly. I don't think I've made it past the second round of the playoffs ever. So, no one season stands out as being really close to to a run at the finals or anything like that. And I mean, when you're talking about thousands of teams essentially in the same league, you got to be realistic that it's a lottery, right? I mean, it's a long shot for any of us, specifically to even make the finals, let alone win the thing.
Yeah, it's always the finals team that you look at has like outliers, like these guys that are 10% drafted or 15% drafted, and they're, like the Bucky Irvings and stuff, these guys that hit mid-season or you just work the waiver wire to the level that you can, but it's so competitive that it's really tough, man, especially if you are doing multiple leagues, and people are pretty vicious out there on the waiver wire, so it's tough, man.
For sure.
But you do a bunch of mock drafts. How I was introduced to you is through email. You and I would throw emails back and forth, and you probably do this with thousands of people. But I was just like, this guy's awesome, man, and he's doing all these mock drafts, and he's very responsive and stuff. Get into a little bit of what you're seeing with these mock drafts that you run. Is there any certain ADP that surprises you, or anything that is really popping out this time of the year?
Yeah, so I run mock drafts for Dynasty League football just to collect ADP, and I've done that for over 10 years now, every single month for over 10 years, which is wild to really think about. But run several mock drafts a month to collect that ADP data. I mean, I think with that much history of data, you can always look back and find some trends. Obviously, this time of year, we're always seeing rookie ADP climb, or I should say, rookies climb in the ADP, and that's definitely happening this year as well. I would say I think there's a couple of uh, running back values, though. We've seen Ashton Genty already being treated as a first rounder in dynasty startups. I believe he's probably going in the top 12 in those early seasonal leagues as well, whether you're looking at underdog or some of the other redraft tournaments going on out there. So he's obviously getting a lot of the attention. RJ Harvey has been a big riser because of his landing spot, but I think that's kind of pushing some of those other rookie running backs down the board a little bit. I really like the value of Quinshon Judkins, really like the value of Caleb Johnson in dynasty leagues. Judkins is a late fourth rounder in one quarterback dynasty startups. Caleb Johnson's about 10 picks lower than that. So getting close to that sixth round range. Really like the values on both of those guys, especially if you're not going running back in the first round or two. And then sticking with the running back position, this is kind of how I like to build my teams. I don't like to invest too much in that running back position because we have seen, we see more injuries there. We see shorter career spans there. So I like to target the cheap running backs typically, and there's a lot of them this year. Guys like David Montgomery, James Conner, Aaron Jones, even Alvin Kamara is relatively cheap in startups. And those guys could be part of a title contender in the next year or two.
Yeah, this year more than any other year I remembered, the running back position just feels like there's 4 or 5 tiers that you can go off of. Like when you're looking at your mocks and everything, there's obviously the front runners of the Gibbs and the Bijans, and Genty's in there somewhere climbing up as well. But then it's like you have all these like the Walkers and the James Cooks, and then you even go farther. And it is, Kamara could be a league winner this year. And then you have all these, James Conner is free, essentially. He's going so far back there. So you can do so many different ways of building a roster. And we're going to get into the scoring of Scott Fishbowl in a minute, just because that little nugget dropped yesterday. And I'm so happy that we get to kind of break it down a little bit today. But yeah, it's incredible, especially with the bonus that you're talking about with Scott Fish in redraft. And it's so running back favorable. It's very heavy points per carry. We could just pull this up right now and break it down a little bit, but
sure.
It's very similar to last year. Obviously there's a lot of wrinkles and stuff. What jumped out to you, as far as the thing that you think really is just like, wow, like I'm so happy. I think you probably knew. Did you know the scoring before you saw this graphic? I'm assuming you don't have to tell me.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I got a little sneak peek before it was shared.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, what jumped out to me is probably the same that jumped out to everybody. Just that volume piece. I knew that Scott had wanted to include targets as a scoring feature last year, and it didn't work out. Of course, SFB is hosted on 2 different platforms. Obviously Sleeper along with My Fantasy League. MFL has points per target scoring. Sleeper does not offer that. So he kind of scrapped the idea last year, but came back to it this year, had done the research and, crunched the numbers like only Scott can to figure out how to balance that, even with Sleeper not having points per target scoring. So yeah, essentially 1 point for every target on MFL, plus the point per reception. So, we're talking 3 points for a 10-yard catch for a wide receiver. And in Sleeper, to balance that out, 2.5 points per reception. Plus you're getting, of course, the yardage on top of that. And Scott said it early in our conversation when he was sharing this with me. He said it on the live stream when he announced the scoring. Volume is king. You see it there right in the middle of the graphic. And he really, he really wants to focus on that. And you mentioned it with the running backs as well. We're getting points per carry. The points per first down were there last year as well, but I think those are increased. You get 1 point per first down this year. And yeah, we're going to see some high scores this season for sure.
Yeah. And it's, I think it really breaks down the importance of a rushing quarterback as well, because 6 points for all touchdowns. I mean, there's not a reason why these rushing quarterbacks shouldn't be going at the very beginning, if we're talking about like how you would approach a draft. Would you take a tight end? Like, you would obviously play the board and kind of decide, how it comes to you more than anything else, I'm assuming. But, if you are looking at taking a Bowers or a Jaden Daniels, who do you think is more valuable in these settings right here? I mean, I think there's always this idea, this group think that a tight end should be top of the board, especially with an extra point per reception. But would you take a tight end over, one of these rushing quarterbacks possibly?
Gosh, I'm not even sure, honestly. I think you could make a case for either direction. I mean, with tight ends, again, on Sleeper, 3.5 points for every catch for a tight end. And, Bowers certainly had some games last year with 6, 8, probably even 10 catches. I mean, he was a volume player in that offense, and I expect that to continue, obviously, this year with the quarterback upgrade there. As far as the rushing quarterbacks, yeah, of course they're going to have the value advantage and the production advantage over, the Burrows and Mahomes of the world, because they get that 0.5 point per carry plus the rushing stats that go with that. I do know Scott always wants to balance the positions and really kind of open up things for so many different strategies to be attempted. And over the past couple of years, we had some of that. We had the points per carry and points per first down. We had some different scoring features and lineup features that boosted the quarterback, boosted the tight end, and boosted the running back. And we saw the wide receiver position kind of become almost an afterthought in a lot of SFB leagues, which was, maybe ironic because wide receiver had become the cornerstone position in Dynasty. And then, guys like me and you have to get in there and try to wipe our brain of that wide receiver lean that we might have from Dynasty leagues. So I think this scoring with the point per target and the heavy point per reception on Sleeper, it's going to make wide receivers and tight ends much more attractive than they were last season. And then not to mention the super flex, the ultra flex lineup options here. They're in the bottom corner of the screen. Still 11 starters, just like last year. The change is there are no position limits outside of a max of 2 quarterbacks, meaning, and I've already seen a lot of people saying it, you could start 11 tight ends if you choose. You could start 11 running backs. So it's going to be wild this year. Maybe one of the wildest SFB series of drafts and leagues playing out that I can recall.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I have to always double check and triple check these things because I'm a tired man. I have a couple babies at home and stuff, and
oh yeah,
I'm always moving, so I don't think my brain catches up to what I'm reading sometimes. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, 0 to 2 quarterback, and I was like, well, hold on a second, and then I really broke that down in my head, and it's like any strategy like we talked about earlier in the show, it's like the outliers are the ones that hit, so like you can come in with a really funky strategy and it could be a great success. Everyone's trying to figure out the ultimate strategy, the best way to go about it. And it's hard to do that without knowing how your board plays out, because man, if they opened up trading in here and they did, I don't think it would ever work out. I think it would just be very silly, but my mind always goes to, man, if I could trade, because like you said, we're dynasty guys at heart, and the idea that I want to trade up or trade down or this and that is always really prevalent when I'm doing a Scott Fishbowl and sleeper. But are you an MFL guy? You're an MFL guy, right? Or
I mean, look at this gray in my beard. I'm an MFL guy. I've been playing Dynasty for 20 years, and started on MFL, and definitely appreciate so much of what Sleeper has done. I mean, really for our hobby in general. And of course, there's tons of pros and good things about playing on Sleeper. I've got several leagues there myself, but yeah, I mean, I host the mocks on MFL for a few different reasons, but yeah, I prefer MFL, but I definitely get the criticism that people might have for that site.
Yeah, it's really, I think I started with MFL. I too have some gray in my beard, but it's not as strong as yours. You're silver foxing over there. But it's coming, man. It's coming. But I started with MFL, and I think the sleeper convenience more than anything, just, like I said, I'm tired all the time. I'm busy. The MFL got a little too much for me.
Sure.
But I appreciate it. And I'm always loving the eliminators, because I get back into the MFLs and I get a little taste of it without having to commit year round for it. But
I understand. That's a good call.
Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, we're getting some people in the chat. We're talking about guys that are putting up tight end. And it's fun to break this down a little bit. Are you putting any thought into the IDP scoring? Because there was a little bit like the return yards last year. Obviously that was insane. We had guys that were, like just purely return guys, like corners in the NFL that were putting up 35, 40 points a game sometimes. Outside of Travis Hunter, do you think this boosts up anybody? Like, is this just a Travis Hunter hit? Like it's just, this guy's going to be the unicorn of the draft and you want to get this guy? Or is there anybody else you could see really just like benefiting from this setting?
No, I think this is Travis Hunter only. And I think that's fine. I mean, again, one thing that Scott has tried to do over the years is just make SFB fun. I mean, he has said it himself. This is a free charity tournament. This is not, it's not life or death. Nobody has big money on the line here. And there's no monetary prize for winning this thing. So have fun with it, right? I think that's one thing he has really stressed. And obviously Travis Hunter has been a big story this offseason, just all of us trying to figure out how he's going to line up on the field and what kind of splits he's going to have as far as offense, defense. And, Scott said it himself. He wants to reward what these players do on the field. That was part of the idea with the return yardage scoring last year. And that has, that's shifted. That's gone this year. So you won't see those returners making, playing a big role in SFB this season, but Travis Hunter certainly will. So, I think there were a couple of cheat codes a little bit, especially in MFL leagues last year, maybe the past couple of years, not only the return yardage scoring, but the kickers as well. And then in MFL, you could start multiple kickers if necessary. And, once the bye weeks and the injuries started hitting, it did become necessary for a lot of us. I know I started multiple kickers a couple different times at least, but kickers are gone as well. So, we've kind of taken out the the easy button a little bit here with those kickers and the returners being out. But as far as the IDP scoring, yeah, I mean that's Travis Hunter only. I mean you'll get offensive players, making a tackle occasionally on a turnover play, but that's nothing. I don't think that's anything we can project or bank on a weekly basis. And who knows? I mean, maybe Hunter doesn't end up being that guy either. We'll just have to see how that plays out. But obviously the scoring is going to boost his ADP big time.
Yeah, I rack it through my brain with Derek Carr out of the league now. It's hard to project what wide receiver is going to get the most tackles in a game. Where maybe the Colts go for Michael Pittman, or you know what I mean? Like find a guy that will catch passes on offense, but has a quarterback that throws a lot of interceptions. Let's just, call it like we see it. And it's like, maybe these guys are sneaky good plays, like a Josh Downs or somebody that's going to catch and then also probably make a couple tackles in the season,
Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, that could be Dimes or Richardson. I saw a report just before we jumped on here that Richardson already has an injury. He's out for most of the offseason, might miss some training camp even. It's a rough time for the Colts. Looks like it might be Daniel Jones starting the season there potentially.
Yeah, and people, there's posts about Jonathan Taylor possibly getting moved, and I don't think it's a silly thing to think that the Colts could essentially just look at this as all right, we built it up to a point where we're not going to be able to do anything with it, and we might have to break it all down. So it could be a fun team to watch for scoring, for points, because they might not have anything to lose. Like they're going to give you it could be like a beautiful fantasy environment, but like an ugly NFL standpoint from the actual team itself. But
yeah, for sure.
It's fun to look at. I think the thing that stuck out in my mind last year was all the quarterback injuries. Was Anthony Richardson was taken pretty high, obviously, because the rushing was still a big thing last year as well.
Yeah,
and then it was a mess. I think that last year I had Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins. I had Russ Wilson. I waited on quarterback a little too long, and I think that's my biggest regret for last year. Is there any strategy that like you have had in the past that has really you've been like very confident in and that you kind of take moving forward, or do you just adjust based on scoring every year? Like, do you have an idea of I'm going to do this? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I don't think. I think you have to adjust based on the scoring, based on the lineup settings, which typically those don't change a ton. We've got the big change this year, of course, with no, really no required positions. I mean, every year we hear from some people that we shouldn't have to start tight ends or things like that, and Scott's adjusted for that with no requirements across the board, really, other than the 11 total. As far as strategy, it's so tough. Last year, I fell into the Anthony Richardson trap for sure. I think I had the 5 or 6 pick last year, somewhere in the middle, and had decided that I would take Richardson. And his ADP going in was, 8 or 9, something like that. I thought I could probably get him. And he goes 101 in my SFB league. He first overall, which he did. It ended up going first overall in several of them. I went quarterback and took Mahomes and Kyler. And both of those ended up disappointing. You get Mahomes and Kyler and you feel like you're pretty safe in any league format. And those guys didn't do much for me, actually. So I don't know. I think with the scoring settings, pushing up the other position players, I think we're going to see quarterbacks falling. Factor in the fact that you don't have to even start one if you don't want. You could go full on zero quarterback. I think we're going to see especially the second, third tier of quarterbacks. We're going to see those guys fall rather than a lot of QB starts to SFB.
Yeah, and I think that's where you can make the case for, tapping the tight ends and the running backs early and waiting on these quarterbacks. And if you're not going to get a rushing quarterback early on, if you miss on that boat, there's no point. Like, I think you just have to wait, right? Like, I'm not going to reach for Jordan Love or, like even a CJ Stroud when he's probably going to get me the same amount of points as TJ Hawkinson or, like one of these mid-tier tight ends that might go a little earlier than expected because of the bonus that you have. But I think everyone's watching the third round reversal. And is that how Scott's doing it? He's just going to put out the poll and whoever wins the poll? Or is that do you have info on that?
I've got a little bit of info. I think the poll is just information gathering, but no, I don't think the winner of the poll will be the winning option will be necessarily the one that he goes with. I think Scott's going to make his decision to do whatever he wants, and that's what I think he should do.
Yeah. Yes, it's
I don't know.
Scott's. It is called the Scott Fish Bowl, baby. Like, it is his tournament, man. He can do whatever he wants.
I guess I would just say, and I said this in the hopefuls chat yesterday, I would not assume that third round reversal is a lock.
Yep. Well, I think Ryan wants to give away a Scott Fish Bowl invite to somebody in the chat right now. So if you guys are in the chat, and if you are not in the Scott Fish Bowl yet, I want you to just drop a comment down in the chat. Let us know that you are not in it. Any of the hopefuls listening, any of you guys that are not in it yet, just let us know.
I just need something to look up. Your last name. I don't know. Your Twitter handle or Blue Sky handle would work. Something like that.
All right, we got some people moving here. We got some motion. How are we doing this, Ryan? You're the man with the spot. You were gonna dictate how this plays. I don't have a wheel to spin. I don't have a race to run, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's okay.
I didn't come fully prepared for the wheel.
No wheel is necessary. We'll just pick out one or two that need a spot. Okay, here we go. So there's a lot of people I see on Twitter, I see in different chats saying that they need a spot and or that they're still hopeful to get in. And then I go and look and they're not actually signed up. I don't know if
you actually sent me a message last year and they said, hey,
I
remember.
Brother, I remember.
You are not even signed up for it. And I was like, well, it gets confusing when you sign up because you can put all your info in, but until you actually hit the button to go through with it. So you think you put in the info and you're like, okay, like we're all set. So definitely double check that if you guys are even signed up. And it's Ryan, Scott, these guys can't add you in if you're not in the system, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we're gonna get I actually just found the first one here that I looked up. Prismatic, I don't know. Prismatic Porter, he's in.
Prismatic Porter, baby. Oh yeah. I've done some pods with him. He's a great guy. He's in my Discord. Congrats, buddy. There we go.
I'm looking up some more. Maybe we'll get a couple people in. I will say Jackson. I can't find Jackson's info. Just looking up his. I assume looking up Jackson Wood didn't get anything back.
All right, what do we got? Maybe Equinox is he's a hopeful. Is he in there?
Sorry, I was looking up. Yeah, McGlenn mentioned Mendelson. We'll get him in. We'll get Mendelson in for sure.
Where's Mendelson at? Mendelson's a great dude. He's a good guy.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, somebody's Ignacio said, how do you sign up? Really easy. scottfishbowl.com. Go sign up. That's it. You can create an account there and get signed up. And then, yeah, that's really all you have to do. Wait and hope, and be active in these streams and be active on Twitter. We'll ask for at some point. We'll ask for some some recommendations, things like that. And we have over 50,000 people sign up for this thing. So essentially, somewhere around 10% of the signups are getting in, more or less. We want as many people as possible to get in. We want people that really want to get in and that are going to be active and committed. Unfortunately, just like a lot of fantasy leagues, we get to week 4, week 5, week 8, and we've got teams not even submitting lineups or being active on the waiver wire. And that's not what we want. We want SFB to be fun and active and competitive for everyone. So, it's an exclusive thing just because of the number and because of how many people are interested in it. But we want as many people as possible to get in.
Yeah, I know if it was up to you guys, everybody would be in it, but to manage a tournament of that volume is almost nearly impossible. It's you want activity. You're right. You want a league that you can actually go into and you feel like it is competitive, because sometimes I do see these people that are advancing, but their league had like 7 inactive people in it, and
well, I mean, we will have, I guarantee, because it happens every year, we will have people on draft day, on July 7th is the kickoff of slow drafts. We'll have teams totally no show, right? And we're replacing people on the day of, because and sometimes obviously there's a good reason, things come up and people have emergencies and things, but a lot of times we just never hear from the people again, and we're kind of left wondering what was going on. But don't lose hope, because even on that day of the slow drafts kicking off, we'll still be looking for people. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, we had Eric Froton on last week, and we talked Tadpole Bowl. So we talked in detail about what that means, and I think that's awesome, man. There's a lot of guys that didn't do Scott Fish Bowl because they're college guys. They're guys that all their content and everything they look into is it doesn't translate all the time when you're looking at these guys from like small schools and everything, and you're putting all your effort into these guys, and it's really nice. I love that you guys are doing that. How did that come about? And was that Froton that approached Scott, or did Scott really want to have this offered up for the people that couldn't do Scott Fish Bowl?
Yeah, I'm actually not totally sure. I've kind of been out of the loop on that one. I mean, obviously, if you know Froton, if you followed his work, he is a huge proponent of college football, college fantasy football. So I would assume that he approached Scott with that idea. And it's not limited. You could be in the Tadpole Bowl and the Scott Fish Bowl. You can be in both of those. It's really just kind of expanding the SFB universe, if you will. Just continuing to grow the product as a whole and the league as a whole, and just another offering to a different way to get people to play.
Yeah. If you are a college guy and you want to play, just go in there, donate. And they are looking for spots right now because, it's a new tournament and it's not easy to fill that, that size of a tournament. So if you are into college football, just go in there, making a donation and putting your info in there, you're probably going to be a lock in to at least get into the Tadpole Bowl, which is something I signed up for. I'm in the Oregon Duck. What division are you in for Scott Fish Bowl? Where are we going to find you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Not decided yet?
No, I'm in one. Listen, I don't even. I know so the MFL leagues are the fictional sports teams, I guess. So I'm in one of those. Harlem Globetrotters. That's what I'm in.
Okay.
I guess that's not totally fictional, but that's the one I'm in. 4 spot. I actually forgot. I thought I was the 5, but I'm the 4 spot
Nice.
in Harlem Globetrotters.
Nice. So you
trying
probably
to get
don't...
a couple more of these folks in. We'll see what we can do here.
You probably don't want a 3rd round reversal at the 4 spot. So you're probably hoping that doesn't play out.
Yeah, that I would be fine. I would be fine either way. Whatever. I really do think whatever Scott wants, that's what it should be. He tries to be diplomatic with some things and, make people happy when he can. But that's it's tough to make everybody happy when we're talking about thousands of folks.
Big J's in here. So if you are not familiar with the Hopefuls, Jay Snyder actually created a group called the Scott Fish Bowl Hopefuls, and it's incredible. Like you're in that chat, I'm in that chat, and it's a group of people that are very like-minded. It's a community. They support each other. It's, they do a lot for each other. It's just a nice group of people that I go back to every year now, just because of the camaraderie and everything. So if you guys are interested in getting to the Hopeful group, reach out to Jay Snyder. So it's Spidey's on Twitter or X, and he can get you in the group, and it's amazing, man. And like I said, it's just a community. Even if it's not Scott Fish Bowl, we are supporting each other, helping each other out, and just talking fantasy football. And it's 24/7. So while you're working the computer over there,
I'm gonna say I think I found Jackson. Jackson, you Spicy Jack? Is that what we're looking at? If that's you, post in the chat or something.
Where is he? Jackson, you think he's Spicy Jack? We need you to confirm that you are Spicy Jack.
No, we'll find out.
All right.
We'll kind of put him in the holding pattern. Oh, there you said. Yes, sir. All right. Jackson's in.
All right. Congrats, Jackson. Spicy Jack. I think you're in my Degens Purple League, so you are going to have to trade me one of your best players now.
We got a couple guys in. There'll probably be another wave of invites coming tomorrow, would be my guess. We try to do Fridays, in the week on a high note, get the weekend started on a high note. But yeah, I mean, I would just say if you're hoping for a spot, keep hoping, because we have hundreds of spots still to come. And we have over a month before the slow drafts kick off. So still plenty of time, lots of invites still to come. Again, just stay active. We'll do, we have race days on the Fantasy Cares YouTube channel, and there's different contests and things going on Blue Sky, on X, on everything. Just stay active, stay hopeful.
Yeah, and you guys have moved everything over to Discord and Blue Sky, I think, right? For the most part, and there's not a whole lot of Twitter activity. If you want to, interact with with Fantasy Cares, for instance, it's more Blue Sky now, right?
No, Fantasy Cares still on Twitter for sure. they're on both platforms. But yeah, I mean, what we were seeing was just a ton of separate chats, individual league chats, pick chats, and then you got into limits that Twitter had for how many people could be in a I guess a group DM. So people were getting left out. They were starting second group chats for different picks and things like that, and it just kind of got messy. And I think ultimately we decided if we could keep it all in one place, that would probably be easier for everybody. And it seems like most people are, savvy when it comes to Discord at this point. So that, I think that was kind of the deciding factor there.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I had a really fun time creating my Discord. It was brand new to me, and I'm at the back end of the millennials. I'm not too privy. I was doing the Twitter group for a long time. For the Degens, and I finally moved to Discord because you're right, it limits you. You really can't get everybody in there. And and now I get it. Now I'm on, and I'm pretty much able to maneuver around it. But it's not my favorite thing to do was transition to Discord. But we prevail. So tell people a little bit about Fantasy Cares if they don't know what you guys stand for, what Fantasy Cares is. I want to talk a little bit about that to the listeners out there, because I think people are donating, but they don't really understand what Fantasy Cares is and what that organization does.
Sure. So, I mean, it's kind of been a slow buildup for Fantasy Cares, but Scott started the SFB, which actually started out as the FF Oasis Bowl, I guess, or tournament. FF Oasis was a website that Scott started and ran 15 years ago, more than that actually. And he started the tournament there just as a way to really kind of some of the same goals we still have with SFB, just as a way to get people together, get the the quote unquote fans to play against the content creators. I know Mike Clay won the first FF Oasis Bowl back in 2012. No, that's not right. Even earlier than that. But anyway, so Scott was kind of rolling with this tournament and 4, 5, 6 years deep into it. And it did not have the charity aspect to it. It was just the tournament, just a fun way to get a few hundred people together in one league and, see who came out on top. And a friend of ours, formerly in the fantasy space, Jeff Miller, actually used to work with me over at DLF, used to host the DLF Dynasty podcast. Jeff was a big proponent of Toys for Tots and did some different small scale fundraisers to do some Toys for Tots shopping every winter. And at one point asked Scott to get involved in that, and which of course he was happy to do. And Jeff ultimately stepped away from doing that. And Scott just saw how impactful it could be and what a great thing it could be. Obviously the community supported that. And, it started out as Scott shopping in Minnesota where he's based. And then, the next year he brought me in and I was shopping here in Louisville, and we had some other folks get involved really around the country. And what started out as a few $1,000s to spend across the country, over the years became close to $100,000 to shop with. And really it just continued to grow. It became known as Fantasy Cares. And, we had to cross some legal, red tape and make sure we were doing things the right way when it comes to taxes and all of that stuff. So now we, as of about a year and a half ago, 501c3, I believe is the term. I kind of get that mixed up sometimes. I stay away from the money end of things, but
yeah,
not
I'm
my
with you.
specialty. But anyway, once we kind of established that and got established as a nonprofit, we were really able to do so much more on top of the Toys for Tots. And anytime a special holiday comes up, or a day of recognition, Fantasy Cares is able to celebrate that. Like my youngest son has Down syndrome, and I know on World Down Syndrome Day, a donation was made to the local nonprofit here in my area, which is obviously a very cool thing for them to do. And Fantasy Cares and the guys over there running that are doing that kind of thing all the time. But yeah, essentially just seeking out ways to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I always appreciate, you're affiliated with them, obviously, but like everyone, that whole team, you guys do such a good job as far as, making this more about that than anything, and that's important, because I think, it is fantasy football, and it's fun to be in this giant tournament, but you can't lose sight of, the things that matter most. And that is obviously the kids and people that are in certain situations and things that are out of their control, helping them is probably the most, I think, important thing of this whole tournament.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate all of that. And it's crazy, but we're going to transition a little bit now that we got the whole kind of layout of Fantasy Cares. Well, really back to the mocks. So have you done any mocks of Scott Fishbowl? Did you do anything last night when the scoring dropped?
No, I haven't done any. I think I know Scott mentioned some folks that do a lot of mocks, and I know you can definitely find some. Let me see if I can remember who that was. Remind myself here. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of mocks going on. I know they did a mock on the live stream last night. I wasn't able to jump on that one, but yeah, you'll definitely be able to find mocks. If you're in the Discord, Scott Fishbowl Discord, you'll see some mocks going on there for sure. I believe it was Jeff Lambert, and you can find him on Twitter. I'm sure he's on Blue Sky as well. His Discord, I know, does a ton of SFB mocks also.
Yeah, I know Jeff is he's just every day 5 or 6 mocks. So he's definitely a great guy to have that resource if you're looking for any ADP or mocks or anything like that. I did an incredible amount of mocks last year and the year before, and it never is what you expect to happen. And you can mock all day if you want to, but until you're in an actual tournament, I promise you, it's not going to play out that way. It is not. There's somebody that's going to jump up and take Bowers 101 or Travis Hunter 101. And it's going to just shake up the whole board, Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the ADP has some value, but yeah, you've got to go into it expecting some shakeup and some surprises, for sure. But yeah, I would say the ADP has value, and the really just the overall experience of getting to mock draft and preparing for it and meeting new people through that. That's a big part of SFB, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the thing I love about FSB the most is the camaraderie. The group chats were always, if you're in Discord, definitely get in Discord, get in the group chats, because you meet so many people, and you make connections, like with the pod that we do. Obviously, it was just people that I met throughout the year in the group chat, and we just had them on the pod, and we just, built contact and had a ton of content going through and some of my best friends in the space, and it's great. You go to the different tournaments and then you can meet up, and I've met up many people in person. You know, a lot of guys that live in the area they didn't even know. You're just like, hey, you know, I go to here for my coffee, and he's like, that's where I go too. And you're just like, dude, you're my neighbor, you know. It's fun.
Yeah,
to put
last year.
face. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I was just gonna say, last year I got to go to 4 live drafts. And those were a blast, a huge, definitely a big memory when it comes to my time working with and playing in SFB. I actually drafted in a slow draft last year, but got to go and just hang out and help out, John Bosch and the guys a little bit, and running those at Cincinnati, Cleveland, Nashville, and Boston, and met so many people, obviously, through that, and saw some people again that I'd met, at the expo or other places. And that was just a great experience. So I would say, if you have a live draft close to you, just go to it. Even if you're not drafting in it, go hang out. They're usually, a lot of times at a bar or restaurant, get some food, hang out, watch people draft, meet new people. It's a great, great time.
Are you going to be traveling for any live drafts this year? Are you going to be jumping around? Come up to Boston again. Come out here.
Yeah, I don't know yet, actually. Yeah,
I got to go to
Boston
one last year. That's cool, man. Were you out here for an extended period of time, or was it just the day and some change after that?
Yeah, we got in a little early. It was basically a long weekend. It was like we were there like 3 or 4 days or something. I'm not sure of the schedule this year, honestly. Last year, as I said, ended up going to 4 of those, and that meant traveling 4 weekends in a row. Most of that was leaving the family behind. So I don't know if I'm going to go to as many this year. I know we're going to be down in Orlando while the live is going on down there. So may try to drop into that one. Cincinnati is pretty close to me, so may try to get there as well. But definitely would recommend that, especially if you've never been to a live draft before. They're a ton of fun.
Yeah, I was at the live draft 2 years ago. This past year, I took a big break from anything, family stuff and all that. So they're doing it in Gillette this year, which if you've been out in this area, Gillette's not a great place to travel to in general.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
It's not Boston. It's probably about a half an hour outside, but
okay.
Yeah, I'll probably swing by there. It's just, once you're out in Gillette, you're locked in, like you're not, gotcha. It's not like Boston where you can do the draft and you can go out and you're at the stadium. There's like nothing. You're like in the woods essentially. Which is it. I think it's going to be a blast. I think it's going to be awesome. But I wish I knew you were out in Boston, man. I would have went last year and said, what's up? Said, meet the group.
It was a good time. There were a bunch of folks out there.
Nice, man. Well, Ryan, I don't have anything else for you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you jumping on. Is there anything you want to add, whether it's the scoring or anything that people might want to hear about Scott Fishbowl? Any little nuggets or information that we didn't really cover over here?
I would just reiterate, we said it earlier, but if you're hoping for a spot, first of all, stay hopeful and stay active. And second of all, make sure you're signed up. Don't take for granted that you are actually that you've already signed up. Go double check, and actually just double check your account on Scott Fishbowl as well, because we've got a lot of invites that have gone out, and folks have not. A lot of folks have not been choosing their draft spot. So maybe you got invited and you didn't even know it. Maybe that's sitting in your spam folder somewhere. So check your account at on SFB at scottfishbowl.com, and just make sure you're signed up and stay out there.
Yeah, my invite was in the junk folder. So go in there and type in the search bar SFB or FSB15 or something and see whatever pops up. because I would have never saw it if I didn't type that into the search bar, because I'm not sitting there going through my junk all the time.
Sure.
But
Yeah, none of us are.
Yeah. So like I said, I appreciate you, man. I really do. I appreciate everything you and Scott do. You guys are awesome in the space, and it's a pleasure to have you on the pod. For the Degens, if you guys want to join us tonight, we are doing another Dynasty show. So that's 10 p.m. tonight, and I have Luke Sawhook on there. So we are going to break down running backs for you in the Dynasty world. So it's like I said, I go Dynasty to redraft to Dynasty, and we're going Devy on Monday. So that's, I forget what I'm doing sometimes, and how I'm talking about players is different from pod to pod. But Ryan, I appreciate you. Everybody in the chat, everybody listening right now, I appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you later. Thank you.